I'm making a blouse block. I don't necessarily want the darts in it. It's going to be oversized. I'm not going to waste my time and put it in. Although I could have just done this to begin with. Hold on a second. So instead of copying it, I'm going to place a 1/2 inch of my dart at the shoulder into the armhole. And I'm going to do it by pivoting. So you can go to the dart. Where do you want it? This is our pivot point. Even though this is where you're going to sew to on both of them, you're always pivoting from the apex. Don't pivot from this point. Always move down to there. So you can either I guess I'll do it this way. What I'm looking for here, overextend this line, is that there's a 1/2 inch in between. That looks like a 1/2 inch, and we can measure it. Make sure that you have enough paper.
Could you do this with,
You can slash and spread it.
how? Oh, well, never mind.
It just saves a little time.
I guess I'm wondering, how would you know it was 1/2 inch with the slash and spread?
You would just measure it, same way that I just measured this. Just close enough of this to open that up a 1/2 inch. And then you'll have like a dart there, which is nothing. Because as you see in here, they just pretend like it doesn't exist with the dotted lines. When you see dotted lines, when I was in 8th grade, we had to take drafting. We had to draft shapes on drafting tables. We didn't have computers back then. So you had to hand draw all this stuff. But anytime you see a dotted line, it's something that is not really there. It's behind the scenes. So there's no dart there, but that's what it would look like if you slash and spread it. That's all that it means. So I'm just gonna always mark that. Everything else is marked. I'm not gonna put the darts in. I don't care, to have it. You can put them in if you want to. If you think that you might want to use this block in the future to be more fitted, you can put that shape in there. I was just not doing it for the sake of the demo. So technically speaking, this is what I've opened. It's not really a dart. I'm just showing you where I put it in the armhole.
What do you mean it's not really a dart?
It's not, there's nothing there. I've made the armhole a 1/2 inch longer
Oh.
by closing up some of this dart and putting it in there, and it's absorbed by the armhole itself.
Oh.
So just circle these for future. I'll draw them in.
So if you wanted to make the armhole smaller, would you make the dart bigger?
But why are you making it smaller? You won't get your arm in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just wondering if it worked in the reverse.
No.
Okay.
It would work in the reverse, but it's not
Yeah.
going to go anywhere after that.
Yeah.
This is what I have left over. So I will put that back in there. Let's say I don't want that in there. I can take that and manipulate it into the armhole itself by measuring that. Oh, look, a 1/2 inch, and bringing this in a 1/2 inch.
Wait, I don't understand. Like, if you were going to do the slash and spread, how would you, I still don't understand, how would you know it was a 1/2 inch?
Measure it, a 1/2 inch. You just measure what is the distance between the slice.
Okay.
If you slash and spread it, you're cutting into something, right?
Yeah.
Spread it open so that there's a void of a 1/2 inch.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm going to do is take a French curve, and I'm going to true up the armhole. The armhole itself, we're just making it larger in this case. So just take your French curve and true this up so we will pretend like it doesn't exist. So you bypass it. None of this is there anymore. So now this is a 1/2 inch longer than when I started. So what you do on a blouse block is to extend the shoulder seam a 1/2 inch. as it's telling you there. It's showing you a 1/2 inch and an arrow. So it's pushing it out, which is Y. And at the side seam, what you're going to do is you're going to drop it 3/4 of an inch and out 3/4 of an inch. And you can either, as they show you in the book, they go straight down from this point. If you want to, you can. You can also follow your side seam. If you want to keep this shape in there. Otherwise, you will have a block that's just a rectangle, which is okay. This again was my original thing before I then decided to pivot. And then with your French curve again, you're going to go from your new extended shoulder. Do you see how the shoulder point is hanging off the garment? It's because it's been extended out. It's no longer up here. So it's oversized. So the shoulder seam itself is longer than the actual shoulder. Look at my sweater. My shoulder seam is down here. It's extended.
So basically making like a drop shoulder?
It's not drop shoulder is greater, but yes. There's more of an extension. This is a very poor, I don't like that armhole, this French curve. What I will also say is, do you notice that I did not start here and start drawing my armhole? I'm starting inside. You want this to be 90 degrees so that when it goes to the other side, it's a continuation of the curve. What you don't want in an armhole is this shape. That is not the proper shape of an armhole. The proper sharp shape of an armhole is that of a horseshoe. So if your armhole does not look like a horseshoe when you put the front and the back together, it is not the right shape. Always remember that. You want that to be 90 degrees so that it can transfer from left to right or back to front smoothly. What you don't also want is something that looks like that for an armhole, like a butt. So you don't want a V and you don't want a W. You want a U, as in horseshoe. So keep that 90 degrees always on any garment. So I did not start here. I didn't place the French curve here to try to do an armhole. I've kept the integrity of the shape and then continued it up. So you can start at the original if you want to, but you see that this is even 90 degrees. That was 90 degrees. So that's a blouse block right there. What I didn't do is add the extension yet. I didn't shape the bottom like we talked about last week and all that other stuff. So you can use, if you have one without seam allowance, you can use that torso block that you made last week without seam allowance to create this. So the difference between the torso block and the blouse block is that we've extended, first of all, you can see that the armhole is longer, no longer fits into this, but we added a 1/2 inch to its length by closing up this dart. If you want this dart gone, you can manipulate it in the armhole by bringing this in a 1/2 inch to equate that. In that case, it becomes a straight line. In this case, it still needs to be close so that you get the proper shape up there, whatever it might be. It's not going to be that extreme. So needless to say, the original length of this needs to be longer, like a 1/2 inch longer than the original. So this is longer and it will work. If you close this dart up completely or get rid of that, then you just need to make sure that this is a 1/2 inch longer than the original. That's it. So that's how you can work around that. And the back is done exactly the same. However, we don't have a dart here, and the book is asking you to take that dart and manipulate it into the armhole like we did on number 10 or 11 for that dart manipulation. So I don't have it, so there's nothing for me to adjust. However, what I will do is I will lift this up a 1/2 inch, because if you had the dart there, it too would have been lifted up a 1/2 inch. So just trace that all out. True it up, because you see that's now curled and it's rounded, so you won't have the proper shape there. Transfer all of this, blah, 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 because we can use it in the future. We don't need to use it for our sample. Do you notice that I didn't do anything to the neckline? Neckline is still the same as it was originally, so your collar that you put on your sample today will fit this. There's no difference. There's no adjustments that need to be made. You use that to create the Peter Pan, it will fit this, because nothing is changed there. So let me just true this up, because the edges are a little bad. So make that 90 degrees. $90. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this up a 1/2 inch, because I need to make that a 1/2 inch longer. If you had a dart there, then you could manipulate the dart into there by closing that dart up and opening it into the armhole. Make sense? So go from your original, and the length of this, whatever it might be, needs to be the same there. So where am I measuring from here? So that's 3 inches. We'll start at 3 inches there. So I'm dealing with 5.5 inches. This too needs to be 5.5. This is rounded and not, do you see the difference? So I'm not going to use that edge to measure from. If both edges were rounded, then what I would do is I would start at 1 and measure to 6.5. And then just subtract the inch. So it's the same thing like this. It should be 5.5 inches long. Mark it 5.5. This gets dropped how much? 3/4 of an inch, and out 3/4. If you do it to the front, do it to the back. Keep the balance. Don't drop one armhole, and I have had people do this. They drop one armhole, but then don't bother to drop the other one, and then they ask why it doesn't fit. You can't, you have to keep the balance in everything. French curve, so we're going to go from there to there. I don't necessarily like this shape, but see, that's too low. Don't go below the point like I just did. And which one do I follow? So if you make a mistake, just simply, you don't have to sit there and erase everything, but just cross it out, and we know not to use it. And now the back blouse block is done. So that's the only difference. So now we've dropped it and extended it out 3/4 of an inch. Out and down on both pieces. And now it's ready. And again, because they show you in the textbook, you can go straight from this point if you want to, and make a straight line down if you don't want any shape in it at all. You can make it a rectangle. And that's what they show in the book. But again, the information that you need for this is just the extension, the 1/2 inch out, 3/4 down and out. You don't need to do all the rest of the stuff, and I opened up the armhole a 1/2 inch. But you don't need to do all the rest of the stuff because they're thinking that you don't have the torso block. And for that, you could follow this if you just had a bodice. So the book will show you things that you don't necessarily need, but they, like in regards to the contour block, if you didn't have the contour block, which is a block that's used for fitted garments, like bras, bikinis, corsets, bustiers. If you didn't have that, if you were making something, it would give you the instructions to do it. So the casual shirt and sleeve foundation, it's thinking that, you don't have a torso block, so they're showing you how to make it using the bodice. But if you have the torso block, then you don't have to go through all of that stuff, just some of it. So the casual shirt, the difference between what I just did is I dropped this 3/4 of an inch and out 3/4 of an inch, whereas the casual shirt foundation is out a 1/2 inch, and then it's dropped 1.5 inches down from here instead, so it's even a larger armhole, and then it's only extended out, that looks like an inch. That's right. It's extended out an inch instead of 3/4, so it's even larger than this one. But it gives you a loose blouse, casual. Like if you wanted to make the boyfriend shirt or something, I think that there's such a thing. Is there boyfriend pants? That would be like more in tailoring. So it's more, and then you can extend it to make it, so this casual shirt is more like making a men's shirt for a woman.
Oh, really?
Do you see?
Oh, I see it, yeah.
So it's even larger. It's as if, your boyfriend was huge with arms like that. And does anybody have any questions on this? So that's step number 1.